My first question is for everybody on the panel. How can individuals or teams within an organization help foster supply chain innovation? Any experience that you could share? And we start with Professor Pundir.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thanks, Charu, for organizing this Celebrity Award event. And it is the second year in a row, and I think it's been going on very well. And must compliment you, even though we're discussing this COVID-19 and this pandemic, there's a lot of impact on supply chain and many other. But I think you did not have dearth of supply chain in terms of your nominations, and probably supply chain expert, instead of being in field, they were majority of them were in home and office, and they still took a chance to come forward and share their views. And frankly, if you look at it, this particular year was really challenging. It's going on challenging. It's not that challenge is over. Challenge, in fact, going to much more we open out, challenges become bigger and bigger. Really, hats off to the all supply chain professionals. Even though productions were not going on, and even transport was not moving, vehicles were not moving, still the supply chain professionals, and they're able to manage to deliver the goods and services to the ultimate consumers. So from somewhere, they're taken out that innovative trick from somewhere, and that's how they ensure that people are not starving neither for essential supplies. Of course, what we call non-essential, in a regular time, everything is essential, but somehow COVID also told us that there is something essential requirement, there is something non-essential requirement. This is what government told us, that essential goods will be delivered, but non-essential can wait. They can be delivered some other day. And that's where a large number of corporates, a lot of companies, a lot of dealers, a lot of suppliers, they suffered in the process. But as far as essential supplies are concerned, I think I again hats off to the all supply chain professionals, logistics who are involved into it. They ensure that adequate supplies are there. It was a big challenge in terms of how do you deliver it, because consumer is sitting at home, and the majority of our company people are also sitting at home. How do you ensure the delivery happens? And with a very skeleton staff, I must say, about a skeleton number of people, through direction they could direct it, they could see that things are delivered, and people don't really starve for it, and they do get consumer supply. I think first time we got to know it's not only work from home, but we always knew there's a home delivery. Local kirana store always give us some home delivery of the items, but we never knew that everything can come to literally home delivery. Even a big suppliers and everybody can come deliver your home, and you need not really move out of your place. And this is what I think a great innovation was done in terms of various companies. Many of these companies, they join hands with others, like say whether Amazon or whether others, they join hand with other companies, and they started delivering many of the products. I see some of the companies which are only delivering the milk. We only supply milk and nothing else. They started supplying everything, whatever you need, household need, essential goods, I must say about it. Non-essential, I'm not still sure of, but I was certainly surprised that even if you don't want milk in the morning, you can eat other things, your vegetables, your fruits, and bread and eggs, and whatever you want about it. So this is how, many of these companies, they evolve, they look for the new businesses, and they try to see that consumer does not suffer, and also they get an alternate business. Another classic case example, you can say Amazon company. I think we could never believe that they can also come into the grocery distribution. They can also come into those fruits and many of the other things. But I think very fast they evolved themselves. Very fast they came forward and they started delivering many of these items. And basically, this was an alternate business. The question of whether survival to stay in the market as well. Because when people are not buying white goods, people are not buying electronic items. So what a company does, company can't sit idle for long about it. And as you know, many of these companies, I think manufacturing companies took a big hit, even though pharma and FMCG were still running, and they're doing a good job, good market. And in fact, many of them are doing well, and in fact, many of them have sales are much higher than what probably last year, or maybe contemporary, even some of them have more sales. And things are really going to look up, and many of these innovative ways of joining hands with like say JioMart has come in a very way. They join hand with the kirana stores, and we started delivering to the consumer, the close by, and I think many of these innovations will happen about it. So what I think Prime Minister said some time back, there is a crisis. I do understand. Can we convert it into an opportunity as well for new business? How new way we can work with it? I think with this, IMI is starting kind of.
Thank you, Professor Pundir. That was actually, like they say, that calamities actually breed innovation, and to survive, a lot of innovation does come into the picture. So I move on to Akhil. Akhil, what do you think about how can teams foster innovation and how can organizations take advantage of it?
Sure. Thanks for the question, and thanks, Dr. Pundir, for setting up the context. It makes my job much easier. First is hope everyone is safe and sound. I mean, in fact,
I left your products because I don't know what do I say.
They are pretty much essential products at this point.
They were essential products. I thought that you must say what you want to say.
They are pretty much essential products. So basically, I sense it as an opportunity. Yes, COVID has been an issue. Yes, the supply and demand side both got triggered and impacted significantly. That gave us an opportunity, and we can see it as cribbing and saying that's a loss, or we can say it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity because it opened up the soft underbelly of business models. It's an opportunity because supply chain, which was supposed to be taken as granted, कि यार गाड़ी में माल बनेगा, गाड़ी में भरेगा, retailer के पास पहुंच जाएगा. It's all about branding and marketing and sales. It changed. Now, supply chain from a cost center is going to drive three things. It's going to be a value driver and it's going to be a profit driver for the company, right? So eventually, the essentiality which has changed in the consumer mind, moving to convenience, efficiency, and economics. That's what supply chain takes care of. If you might be visible through ads and promotion, but if you're not on the shelf, you're not available and you're not fresh, right? That means you're not providing convenience, you're not being efficient, and you're definitely not economical, neither to the customer and not to the company's bottom line. And that's the opportunity or the gambit of change which will happen. Given that opportunity flow, what I see is innovations come in 4 buckets technically. And I don't want to preach to the choir here, but A, there are fundamental research and innovations which happen at basic government institutions. Like Professor Pundir will help us design what is make to order and what is make to stock sort of a thing. Then there is sustainable innovations which companies keep on doing just to keep it afloat, to look at reducing cost escalations, improving mix, and delivering value, which is fine. And that is what we have been significantly doing so far in supply chain. Opportunity for us in innovation is to have breakthrough innovations and disruptive innovations. And that's where we have seen significant models, business models coming in. All of us on this call have definitely used a Big Basket, have definitely used a Swiggy, for which they are doing an ad right now saying crore log aur bhi manga rahe hain, right? Have definitely used other forms of last mile logistics, which is only a delivery mechanism, but also move from something called a shared economy to a customized, co-created economy. That's where the world will go. And that's where the supply chain innovation will be great. Opportunity for everyone here. I don't know who all qualify there, but then given that the stock belly is exposed and given that we have seen a lot of fundamental changes happening in the e-commerce space, Reliance, Future, Amazon, things like those happening, and there are different news right now on that. One thing will happen for this particular sector of supply chain, and all of us sitting here, jobs. While the jobs will be cut for other functions, most probably, jobs in supply chain, people in supply chain will be in the highest demand. So, Professor, you will get a lot more applications in NITI this year. You will have a lot more applications saying, I want to learn sales and operations and supply and operations rather than going for marketing or for finance or things like those. And that's where the opportunity lies. So that's from my side for this question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Akhil. I think collaboration is the key, and also the fact that logistics and supply chain have actually have become the sunrise industry for the next decades. So definitely a lot of talent will come up in this industry or in this vertical, supply chain and logistics. So Moving on, Raviraj, what do you have to say? How can individual teams within an organization help foster supply chain innovation and experiences you could?
Right, Charu. What I want to actually, answer would be in two parts. First is where they should do it. Where should this innovation largely be led? This is my views and a view of a lot of industry leaders that I've interacted with. And then the how part. So when I say where, I would say that largely us as supply chain leaders would need to build or work in innovations which build resilience in supply chain. And when I say resilience, what do I mean? I mean that our objective function would be to improve resilience, and factors like time to market, cost extra would be constraints. So we have to optimize the resilience part, which is very different from the way we have looked at our business and our supply chains in the past. And we'll need to be innovative in rebuilding our supply chains because right now no templates exist for that. This is something we are learning on the fly. And some of the areas where I can share thoughts and where do you actually need to build resilience would be through building redundancy in capacities, building diversity in fulfillment, and as not sticking to one or two models. You can use multi-modes, so you can switch over in during crisis. For example, in food business, you remember that the cloud kitchens were the fastest off the block during the lockdown because they are delivery service already aligned, and they're a very small blip. But the big fine dining restaurants took a lot of time to come on board. Why? Because a lot of these companies already had other modes in place, and so this is one thing: diversity in fulfillment, building diverse teams. That's another big thing that we need to look as supply chain leaders. Is this core crisis team should truly be cross-functional. It cannot just be solutions in supply chain or solution in finance or manufacturing. They should look at it from a multi-dimensional view. Building modularity, that will be one big area of innovation that we'll have to do it, because while our highly integrated systems do work and are very efficient in the past, but they're very vulnerable. If the manufacturing lines are modular, or even the teams are modular, you can combine multiple teams and make them work in case of crisis. One team is down, something else will start. If one site is down, some other site can work. And of course, the big focus in innovation should be to drive digitalization. This is the time to drive digitalization. They say there was some article I was reading that digital pioneers can get at least 5% cost benefit straight away within 2 years. Having end-to-end visibility in your supply chain with one click, imagine, and all the hotspots immediately and make course correction is something that you normally don't do it. Today I used to do things like that once in a month when I look at all the reports. Now the focus is to build innovation in such a way that we are able to get our end-to-end control towers in place. So these are my thoughts. These are my thoughts in how and where we should do it, and how do we create that kind of environment. I would put it again as two parts. One is you create an environment for innovation in an organization, and the second one is to recognize. Now, how do I see create environment? And I'll give you examples of some organizations that I've worked with. In 3M, when I worked with, they used to say that you could dedicate about 15% of your time in a week for development activities, and you could do anything. And at the end of the day, you could come out with nothing also, but it was a time for you to work. In Alstom today, they've got something called as an I Know You program, which recognizes contributions of individuals and groups and helps them implement. Okay. Then, for example, recently we have launched within our team something called Smart Cards, where everyone gives digital ideas, and then so even if you don't have a place to go and give your ideas, you log it in digitally, and then people will evaluate and give you a quick result and implement it. And the beauty of digitalization is you can laterally do it across 60 countries of Alstom. So it's a good concept that we have created. The technology and the digitalization does help it. And the second important part is to recognize it. When someone gives ideas, someone gives solutions, and I saw a lot of good ideas that had come out when we were evaluating the candidates. Recognizing them either through national, international forums like this one, or through organizational forums, in the company, recognizing those talent will definitely foster that kind of environment for people to come up with innovative ideas. That's it from me.
Right. Thanks a lot, Ravi. You made a lot of valid points. Plus, the kind of examples that you gave, I think a lot of people here who are attending can benefit and they can implement it in their organizations. Because obviously, giving that extra, giving some kind of 15% time to people to switch off from the daily grind and to think of something different is actually something where which most organizations would feel a little skeptical about, but that will actually help in generating new ideas, because in the daily grind it's very, very difficult to generate new ideas. So moving on, with the first question itself, Ravikant, what has been your what have been your experiences and your thoughts on fostering innovation through teams? Ravi, you're mute. You're mute.
Thank you, Charu. And I think when you talk about fostering innovation, I think what key things which come is obviously one of the things which is how do you incentivize innovation? I think Ravi touched upon the other points, and your company is setting aside 15% of your time in a week or in a mandate once in a week. It's a substantial thing. That's one way of incentivizing. But over the time, and we are operations people. I have been in operations for 20 years. So when we see what happens is, one way of incentive, there is a way of fostering innovations is on incentivize. But how you build the culture of innovation is that you do not penalize unsuccessful innovations. I think that's a very, very important point. So only then people will leave aside the fear. If I do this, if it fails, what happens? So basically, while you give points or this thing for as many as successful innovations, you need to give points for as many successful attempts as well, and only then it will. And it is incumbent upon we as leaders, we as managers, and and these innovations could be small things. And when in operations, I used to say, magic doesn't happen in supply chain. Somebody will say, "Kal maal pahunch jana chahiye." Arey, magic nahi ho sakta. But then this magic happens over 1 year. With you do 10 things which are only 0.5% improvements. And this 0.5% improvement idea could have come from somebody in the lowest order level guy. So unless we have a culture ki we are listening to them, unless we have, so that's the culture. We have to foster that. यार तू क्या लेके आया, कोई बात नहीं, फेल हो गया, अगला. So our attitude has to be, if you do something, okay, let's see something new from you. तो आपने क्या किया? It's not about the KRA alone, but outside the KRA, what did we do? And when we talk about operations in the warehouse and this thing, it's very simple things like उसने conveyor को readjust किया. They're very simple things. Like उसने थोड़ा सा TAT 2% कम हो गया. And this TAT, when you're multiplying, across 200,000 units sending out per day, or this thing, it actually impacts a lot. But I think one of the key things which I when fostering innovation is to not penalize unsuccessful attempts. I think that is as important, or maybe more important than, I would say, incentivizing and giving awards to this thing as well. Somewhere down the line, I think that's very important when you want to create a culture across the company of that.
Thanks, Ravi. I wish I was incentivized for all my unsuccessful attempts at innovation. Anyway, so Royston, we all wish.
We all wish.
You ended up
from an era which is before you. Yeah. Exactly.
Royston, we move to you. What are your thoughts on this?
So yeah, Charu, thanks for the question. So I think, but let me start by clarifying that all my views and opinions that I'm going to express here are based on my knowledge and experience in supply chain, and not the official policy or position of my current organization, Johnson & Johnson. Yeah. So that being said, I think I want to dwell a little bit further on, on the direction that Ravi Raj and Ravikant have taken, right, about innovation. How exactly? So innovation actually, the way I look at it is a state of mind, right? It's a way of thinking. And therefore, Ravikant spoke about culture, right? It's about looking at the same thing but with new eyes. Like I mean, something that we have not been doing. Like for instance, for the last 6 months, going like a tourist, right? We've all been stuck at home. But when you are a tourist in a new place, you look at things with a new eye, right? And that's exactly what fuels innovation. And the way of it in supply chain, I think Ravikant brought up the point of looking at it end to end. So I think the point is to take a holistic view, because supply chain has a lot of trade-offs, and all of us who have worked there know these trade-offs, right? And you need to build a view, an innovation that takes a holistic view, right? Because you don't want to be short sighted and benefit one aspect at the cost of another. And again, we don't need to wait for a crisis like this current one, right, for us to be proactive. And I think your question was what experiences I have, right? So going back to the how can organizations, so I've seen organizations fuel innovation by a number of ways. One, I think, was alluded to. You can have suggestion schemes, right? I've seen this especially on shop floor situations where there's a suggestion box, and periodically there's a drive for encouraging suggestions. Then there is a review of all those suggestions, a formal recognition and implementation of the top 5 suggestions. I think that is one very very formal way an organization can encourage innovation. I've seen organizations do things on a very different scale, right? I've seen some organizations, or one or two actually, who have pulled out the best and brightest from different areas of the supply chain and formed an internal innovation team. And this team is trained up. For instance, the organization I was working with at that point trained up this team on Six Sigma, right? It's a framework, right? But you can apply it anywhere. And then this team went back across to where they were and they applied this, and they developed so many different innovations, right? I think I'm not here, not pushing Six Sigma, but there are different frameworks, and all of us are aware of these different frameworks that can be used in supply chain, right? And this is an organization that looked at getting its best people to drive innovation in the areas where they work by enabling them with tools, right? And a third aspect I want to bring in again is the use of metrics, right? And all of us know, as we measure us, that's how we behave, right? And organizations use metrics to drive behavior. But I think metrics that need to be simple and need to highlight the trade-offs in supply chain, which will encourage innovation. So I want to give an example again of an organization I worked in, where the entire set of employees, so every employee in the company was incentivized based on just 2 metrics. One was inventory turns, and the second one was sales value, right? And depending on where you were in the organization, if you were sales, you had a higher percentage weightage to the sales value and lesser to inventory turns, while if you were on the supply side, you had a higher weightage to inventory turns and lesser on sales, right? But all said and done, everyone had a it never went too low as 20 to 70, right? Or 30 to 70. It was more in the 60 to 40 range. So even though you were sales, you realize the significant impact of the supply chain on your incentives, right? And I think this trade-off, and it's very simple. You just have to know 2 things, right? And that's how you can really drive innovative thinking, because people need to be aware of the constraints in the supply chain in the business that they are running, as well as the what they really want to achieve. And putting these kind of simple constraints and metrics which drive performance through incentivization is a very strong innovator, is something I would like to add to this conversation. So these are three broad thought processes that I have, past experiences that I would like to share. Over to you, Charu.
Thank you, Royster. That was very, very enlightening, specifically because it kind of, I started remembering that joke, that the person saying that, if we train him or send him for some high level training, and if this employee leaves, so the other person says that, what if you don't train him and he stays? So from that angle, what you said is that, you send your best smart people, the best employees, put them together into a team and train them so that they can implement all the best practices and bring out that innovative, that's how the innovative culture can be fostered, as well as improvements can come up in the organization.